So we have the page here. It's going to be Keating Matilda doing the small one.
And we're going to do this. We're going to be doing. We just discussed this. They're going to do their version, and then we're going to do our version.
You want to do any of them?
It's complicated. So they'll do their slow version. We're going to do the fast version right after that, and you can switch.
Well, yeah, welcome everyone. Of course, members of Temple Sinai, but I most especially want to welcome members of the Clifton Lutheran Church who are joining us this morning for our Interfaith service together with Pastor Bixby. But I know this is also your regular Sunday morning service, so I hope this will be a worshipful experience for all of us. We're going to begin on page 1 with Hine Matovu Manayim Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. So important, I think, for us how good and pleasant it is to be together as one family. I'd like to invite the church's choir to lead us in this song. Such a beautiful song, and thank you, Allison, for joining. And I sort of was hoping that with this shared song, we might all be singing together. So it was great that Allison, you were able to join them for that. Thank you all for leading that. And we'd like to, the Temple Sinai Band, which is fairly newly reconstituted, would like to celebrate with you all, invite you all to sing, since you know the words, another version of Hine Matov, same words, and I just think it's very apt to sing this in different ways, because just think of family and how many different ways it is good and pleasant, and how many different ways and challenges sometimes it is to be together all as one family. And I think for us here this morning as well, we're so accustomed to being in our own spaces for prayer, to have a service all together a different version of a different way of worshiping that we're unaccustomed to. And Pastor Bixby remarked that so often when we do these interfaith services, because some terrible thing has happened, and we're coming together as a community. But thankfully, we're just doing this electively to be together, to be followed by doing, we'll talk more about this a little bit later, important God's work in feeding the hungry and supporting new immigrants to our area. So this is just a really celebration truly of how good and pleasant and important and powerful it is to all be together as one family.
That was beautiful. We had to remember to do both of those versions. Vic, write that one down. Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, and thank you, Rabbi, for welcoming us here this morning. It's really a pleasure to be back. Honestly, I was remarking to Shira on the way in. It's so good for the band to be back together and to be joined. I had to dig out my kippah after pulling N95 and another N95, and there's one of those masks, and there at the very bottom was my kippah, and I was just so happy to take hold of that. And it's so good to be back with you all as we do this work together. Rabbi mentioned that we talked about, this is just a time to gather electively. But he was quick to point out, by the way, when I said that there isn't any ongoing crisis right now, there is an ongoing crisis, and it's why we gather for the Manna Project, is that for whatever reason, we seem to be okay with perpetual hunger in our community. This is a season in the church year where we're introspective about stuff like that, whether it's about our own human hearts and what we've done and what we've left undone, or about our larger society and what we have grown complacent with accepting, and understanding that we could do a whole lot more. So thank you so much for being here today, as you have elected to being a part of the whole lot more. And together is the best way to do it, in my opinion. So we're here this morning. We've got a song that we used to sing all the time. It's just, just a celebration of the morning, a celebration of being together, very much in the line of Hinam Tov. Morning has broken. Cat Stevens did a great version of this. Yeah, absolutely. So look that one up as well. Why don't we launch with Morning Has Broken from here? That's the kind of treat we get every Sunday morning. In case you're wondering, it's always a pleasure to be joined with our talented and beautiful musicians. So I mentioned a second ago that the church is in the season of Lent, and it's a penitential season that leads us up to Easter, which always corresponds to Passover. So it's always a time that makes me think about our particular union together, Jews and Christians, and what we share. Lutheranism is a faith that departed from the Roman Catholic Church. And when we did that, the Roman Catholic Church, believe it or not, wasn't terribly happy to see us go. And they decided they were going to make some changes to try to attract people back. And one of the changes and one of the initiatives was by a guy named Saint Ignatius of Loyola. And he founded a group called the Jesuits. And Kara studied at a Jesuit university. I have many Jesuit friends. The Catholics made a terrible mistake when they created the Jesuits because they ended up being best friends with us. And Jesuit and Ignatian spirituality is a gift to the world. It really is amazing. And the Jesuits have been such a force for learning and understanding and for attacking dogmatism wherever they think that it gets in the way of those things. There's a prayer that St. Ignatius taught his followers to do every single day. And it's actually a spiritual practice that has 5 parts. And while it's supposed to be a daily examen, and that's E-X-A-M-E-N, this is something I'm going to invite us to do now, reflecting on your week. So if you would join me, the practice begins like this. So close your eyes, if you will, with me. And we begin by searching for and inviting God's presence. And however you feel that, however you experience God, and understanding that we have asked for God to be with us, using our powers of examination, we review the week that lay behind us. We do so with honesty, with clarity about the things that brought us great joy and the things that troubled us, the things that have still left us confused, and the things that are filling us with excitement. And acknowledging all of those things, we find ourselves in gratitude. And even if those things were sorrowful, we are gratefully gracious that God was present with us in them. For those things that left us elated, we give praise to God. For those things that point us forward, we are grateful for God's promise. And from our gratitude, we now examine the wellspring of emotions that fall forth. The things that have left us with feelings maybe too deep for words. We acknowledge now all of those feelings, and we validate them in our hearts. And having honored those feelings, we now make the promise to live in to this following week, trusting that God will be there with us. And we say, Amen.
If you turn to page 2, I want to build on that theme that Pastor was just talking about, sort of going from the week that was into the week to come, and how do we do that? How do we take what was and go forward? And we would like to share a song with you all called Kol Ha'olam Kulo. All the world is a very narrow bridge. The important thing, the main thing, is not to be afraid at all as we go forward. Just want to say a word about this song. We sing this song. It's a very popular song in Israel. You know, it really gets you, hopefully, to overcome any fear that you have. But the truth is that Rabbi Nachman of Bratslav, to whom we attribute the song, didn't actually say the whole world is a very narrow bridge. The important thing is not to be afraid at all. What he actually said, if you look on your page here on page 2, he says that know that every single person must cross a very, 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 very narrow bridge. But the main and essential rule is don't let yourself become frightened at all. Don't become so fearful that you don't even step across that bridge. And when the pastor and I discuss this service, we're going to be talking in a few minutes about what goes on in the heart in prayer, but at all times as well. And fear is such a component in so many of our lives. And it would be great to be able to say, we won't be afraid at all. We can cross any narrow bridge that we come upon. Rabbi Nachman of Bratslav, who wrote this, I think was a little bit more realistic and said, no, we are going to have fear in our hearts. And the question is, how do we handle that fear? And so the word is not lo lefached klal, but here's the Hebrew lesson for you, lo lehitpached klal. It's a reflexive verb. Don't fear yourself. Don't make yourself so frightened that it prevents you from doing things. And if you think about it, fear sometimes can be an ally. If I'm crossing a very narrow bridge, I want to be a little bit fearful because that means I'm going to be a little bit more cautious. I'm going to hold the railings. I'm going to check and make sure that that bridge, I have a reasonable chance of getting across. I'm not going to act carelessly. I might recognize because of that others might be fearful. And I'm going to try and work with them to strengthen ourselves so we can all cross the bridge together. So I think that's just a very valuable lesson from Rabbi Nachman of Bratslav and really the reality of sometimes what we sing, what we pray for, because this song has really become sort of a secular as well as religious prayer, has to go deep into our hearts in order for us to begin to understand what it is that we're praying for and what it is that is in our hearts. And I think we wanted to discuss this a little bit this morning. How do we know what is in our hearts? And I know this is the season that you all are examining really what is in your heart.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me, as we say. Yeah, definitely. The heart's a complicated thing. I mean, you're absolutely right to say that there is a whole host of things that comes, from. Do you mind if I get a little autobiographical for a second?
Sure.
Is that okay?
How can you not get autobiographical when you talk about the heart?
Right. Everyone's heart's their own. I was thinking back to when I first told my wife that I loved her. And do you remember the words, Kara? Because I did not say, "And I love you, Kara." I think, right? Right. That was my way. I had a lot of fear, right? And for whatever reason, that I thought was going to be a helpful way to put it into words was, "I think I love you. I think I love you." Man, that was hard to say. That really was. And it was true. And it still is true. I love you. Now you know. Yeah, I'm saying it solidly now. But it was really, there was a lot of fear to overcome. And the fact that I had a chance to say that was because the fear was met with courage. And that's what gave it value. The other thing I wanted to say too is the way that it took place in my body. Because yeah, the words came from my mouth and I've been thinking about them for a while, but really it was solidly in the center of my abdomen that I felt it. And the struggle to get the words out of my mouth was absolutely felt right here. And I'm wondering if any of you can reflect too about the moments in your life where this part of your body was the part where you're feeling it. And maybe it was because of good things, maybe it was because of really, really hard things. But this is where it's at. That's something that I think the ancients understood a lot, right? They always talked about this part of yourself, this heart, being the seat, not only of emotion, but also of reason, right?
Absolutely. And it's kind of funny that you mentioned, I think I love you,
Yeah.
right? We think about thinking with our heads, but you're absolutely right. There's this idea that your thinking is actually your heart. And when you do think about that, we know that there are different kinds of knowing, right? There's knowing of rational reasoning and figuring things out. There's also that intuitive kind of knowing, and that does seem to come from the heart. In the Jewish tradition, we speak about a couple things about the heart. First of all, we acknowledge to God that we are creatures of levav, basar v'dam, a heart of flesh and blood. We're only human. At the same time, we also recognize that God is examining another part of our body, the klayot, the kidneys, which is where God's like, are you being truthful with yourself? I know exactly what you did. There's no hiding from God our actions, which I guess perhaps is a theme for Lent. But I think perhaps most relevant and important in Judaism is we pray to God to give us a levav shalem, a whole heart. And this is really challenging. Sometimes we feel a bit divided against ourselves, whether that's the heart, the head and the heart, or whether, conflicting, challenging things that we have to cope with, mixed emotions, dilemmas in which there are no good or easy answers about how to behave. The usual word for heart is lev. And yet when we say this prayer, levav shalem, we double the letter bet, levav, which is kind of weird. Almost as if we have a two-chambered heart, which we actually do have a two-chambered heart. And the tradition, speaks of, well, what is this double extra letter be, the second component of your heart? Is it your good inclination and your wicked inclination that we're trying to unify for a higher purpose? We say that we can also worship God with our animalistic motivations and our sense of, you might call it the evil inclination. For example, competition, right? That's, you want to go in and you want to win. Well, how do you turn that to something positive? I'm going to motivate me to try even harder to achieve, right? To do something good. And we also speak about levav shalem in our holiday season. Perhaps this is what we're doing here as well, that we should we in the collective sense worship God all together. Ka'aguda achat b'levav shalem. All of us as one entity with a whole, complete heart. We're trying to align ourselves as a community. I think this is what we're doing this morning with the work that we're doing, is trying to align our hearts, complete sense of dedication and sense of purpose all together in trying to feed the hungry in our community. So in that sense, we are being levav shalem.
God, beautiful. I couldn't agree more. That's something that I think the Christian church has, we've understood that bifurcation for a while, and it's sometimes painful. At the core of the very essence of what sent Christianity forward was a sense of two languages, even Hebrew and Greek, and trying to understand how our scriptures are written in both and that both are valid. And there's always this sense of how do we come back together and become whole. we're also, unfortunately, we're part of a legacy in the West and Western thought that likes things being neatly divided into categories. And if there's only two categories, that's better, right? So, yeah, and the either or dynamic, especially when it relates to head and heart, I've always found to be very troubling. We can excuse some of the great evils of this age using simply just our reason and saying, well, the reason why it is that way is because of these heartless, cold facts. And to be dismissed saying, well, you've got a really big heart, Pastor, but unfortunately that's not the way the world works if you were just to think about it for a minute. But the heart has a logic. I refuse to accept that there is no logic to looking at a situation as ongoing hunger and saying that no, my heart speaks with a wisdom when it says that that is wrong. And quite frankly, too, our head has quite a bit of feeling in it, you know? When we say that something feels right, we're making a logical claim as well. So part of our impulse is about unity, is about putting back those things together into one part. And it's about putting back together the faiths that we've seen ourselves as alienated from, and the communities we need to put back together. One of the chief things I think about the Manna Project that I've always really loved is that we have not seen there as a distinction between the people who are going to get these boxes we're receiving today and the people who are filling them. And we've always invited people who may or may not be receiving those boxes to stand with you guys in a few minutes and put them together. And who knows whether or not it was just a good Samaritan here today, or a good Jew, or a good Christian, or whether it was somebody who was saying, I am going to be getting one of these boxes later and I want to be a part of building them. And I've always really loved that. That's given us a good opportunity to enable the kind of worship that comes, from deep within.
Absolutely. And I think the basis for that is recognizing that at the end of the day, we're all human. And that sense of humanity is really sort of the focus of this next prayer that we'd like to move on to. Eli, Eli, my God, I pray that these things never end. We all appreciate these things on a human level. The sand, especially here in Marblehead, the sand and the sea, the rush of the water, the crash of the heavens. We translated the prayer of the heart. In Hebrew, it's tfilat ha'adam, the prayer of just a human being. This prayer is actually a poem written by Hannah Senish. She is a young woman who, as a teenager, emigrates from Hungary to what was then Palestine, the nascent state of Israel, and she becomes a poet. And she was in a kibbutz by the sea, which is where she wrote this poem. And then in World War II, again, being torn of heart, recognizing the humanity of the need to help others, she goes on a secret mission to fly back to Hungary to try and alert family and friends in the Jewish community there, and she's captured and tortured, and never revealing where we're making the British Army was making secret drops for people to infiltrate and help, and she is murdered there. This prayer, Eli, Eli, has a sense of sadness, but also just a sense of beauty and I think strength as well. Please sing along.
We've got a song that we sing oftentimes too around this season that's, again, kind of introspective, Be Thou My Vision. Hey, Thomas, what have we been talking about before bed these days? We've got a Bible character who we've been talking a lot about. Remember his name? We're going through his life. Starts with an M. Moses, yeah, Moses. Moses had a big heart. Moses had a lot of stuff happen in his life where he was sometimes overwhelmed, sometimes he rose to the occasion very courageously. Even when it was time to talk about how humble was Moses, the most humble. Right? That always strikes me as if there were ever anybody who would have a chance to brag and talk about his own accomplishments and the things that he did on planet Earth, it'd be Moses. Moses took that opportunity instead to say, what a God we have. So that God's what guides us. That God is our vision. This is the song we sing about that.
I'd like to begin to conclude our service with a couple of other songs, and really on this theme that will resonate with both of our communities. What we are doing this morning, and I know this is the same in Christianity as well as in Judaism, in general, our highest aspiration is to try and imitate the ways of God, doing the good things that God does. God offers hospitality, we should give hospitality. God clothes the naked and feeds the hungry, we should clothe the naked and feed the hungry. And that's what we're doing this morning. God gave manna, so we're giving manna to those who are in need. But there's also, we talked about the heart this morning. The pastor mentioned a heart of love, which is where we feel this emotion. And there's a song, I'm going out on a limb here, because I know our band doesn't yet know this song, and I've been waiting for an opportunity to introduce this song to our community as well. This is new for them. And the song is called Olam Chesed Yibaneh, which comes from Psalm number 89, Build This World with Love. And this song was written by a colleague, Rabbi Menachem Creditor, whose father was a rabbi in the town that I grew up in. We met each other in Jerusalem. He was doing, apparently, exactly the same thing that I was doing on 9/11. He was watching what was going on, cuddling a newborn baby in his chest. And he says that this song he wrote as he was watching what was going on. It came out of his heart. And I want to share it with you all. I'm going to invite you all to sing along. And I think the words here are sort of the inverse of we imitate God. Sometimes we act in a way that we hope that God is going to imitate us as well. We have this heart of flesh and blood, what we talked about earlier. God, of course, has the divine heart. We aim for that. But perhaps we need to begin with our own heart here. So the words are, I will build this world from love, and you must build this world from love. And if we build this world from love, then God will build this world from love. We put this on the screen, and I hope we can all sing along. I hope this works. Very good, so give me one moment.
You should know that technical difficulties go beyond religion. You should understand that now.
I hope that we can all build this world from love, inspiring one another to build this world from love, because if we all build this world from love, then God too will build this world from love. And that's what we're going to be doing this morning, is building this world from love with our packing project this morning, but not until we have a delicious brunch first. However, before we do that, even, we always conclude our services with a prayer for peace. So I'd like to invite our band to sing on the back page here. We have a couple songs for peace. I don't know if you guys can do the first one. O Yavo Shalom Aleinu, peace will yet come upon us. This is a song written by Palestinians and Israelis making music together and recognizing that only with one another can we truly build peace. Sing along. Thank you all for joining in. Meant to all be sung together. And so say shalom, and we'll conclude with that. Say shalom b'mromav. Hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol Yisvei Tevel. May the one who causes peace to reign in the high heavens, let peace descend upon us, upon all Israel, all of us who dwell on earth. We say, Amen.
Thank you.
Shalom to everyone. Please
Shalom.
join us in the back. Shalom. We will go into the room just behind us here for our breakfast and our packing project. Good morning to everyone. Shalom.
Come, fathers and mothers, come, sisters and brothers, come, join us in singing the praises of Zion, the praises of Zion. Oh, fathers, don't you feel determined to meet within the walls of Zion? We'll shouting around, we'll shouting around, we'll shouting around, we'll shouting around the walls of Zion, the walls of Zion. Come, fathers and mothers, come, sisters and brothers, come join us in singing the praises of Zion. Come, fathers and mothers, come, sisters and brothers, come, join us in singing the praises of Zion, the praises of Zion. Oh, fathers, don't you feel determined to meet within the walls of Zion? We'll shouting around, we're shouting around, we're shouting around, we're shouting around the walls of Zion, the walls of Zion, the walls of Zion. We're shouting around, we're shouting around, we're shouting around, we're shouting around the walls of Zion, the walls of Zion, the walls of Zion.